Georgia in 2020 was decided by less than 12,000 votes. And last night in our phone bank, we made over 6,000 phone calls. That just shows you the power of the people when we come together, and we want more of that.
So for the last week here in Georgia, we have gone to 3 congregations, Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Gwinnett, Unitarian Universalist Church of Augusta, and now here at Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Athens, where we are hosting rallies and actions to make sure that we not only get out the vote, but we are talking about the issues that matter deeply to us as Unitarian Universalists. If we believe that everyone has inherent worth and dignity, then we are not going to be afraid of other voices coming to the table. As Unitarian Universalists need to be committed, absolutely committed to making sure that we are carving out space and supporting folks that are marginalized by racist ideologies to have a voice and to make sure that the laws that we are creating and the people that we are electing are accountable to those communities.
Our goal is to preserve democracy from white supremacy, fascism, and authoritarianism that take away people's liberty and the sacredness of their life and their ability to choose. The vote is our principles in action. It is protecting this democracy that we live in, that we strive to keep, and also showing people that faith is an action word. And there's ways to exercise your faith that's not just Sunday morning, it's every day, day in and day out.
In 2021, many states across the country passed voter suppression laws specifically targeted at BIPOC folks, at youth. And here in Georgia, they have passed SB 202, which will allow any random person to challenge someone's voter registration and to challenge someone's ability to vote at the polls. So we are here talking about those issues and getting youth involved, not only to knock on doors, to phone bank, to postcard, but also to show up as poll workers at the polls, to be poll chaplains, to de-escalate and be a supportive force for democracy.
We want to make sure that people know that there is an election coming up and that their voice is needed in this election.
If we have every single UU in the country talking to their friends, talking to their families, talking to their community members, talking to their partners in their social justice work about this election, about their values, and then doing everything they can, we can make a difference.
Welcome to the First Unitarian Church of Toledo on this 6th day of October 2024. I am Karen Christie, today's service associate. I'm here with Reverend Tim Barger, the Toledo Unitarian senior minister. Jeffrey Maxey is our music director and today's musician, and he is joined by members of the First Unitarian Choir. Ginny Gottman is our Director of Lifelong Learning and will tell the story. And today's tech crew is led by our producer-director, Walter McGee, and Jeff Slauson controlling the cameras. David Strickler at the soundboard, and Julia McGee, the acting president of our Board of Trustees. She takes on a kind of general assignment for tech support, among other things. We have many more volunteers helping too, with greeters in the lobby, religious educators, education helpers for today's RE activities, and we have a kitchen crew preparing for coffee hour. We are a church with no official doctrine or creed. You don't have to sign anything that states we believe in order to be a member of this religious organization. But we do encourage all to develop their own credos as they develop their individual beliefs. We support each other in our individual searches for truth and meaning, and sometimes finding. We welcome everyone as we sang in the opening song. If you are a visitor, you may notice in the pew rack in front of you a bookmark with some details about Unitarian Universalism. Feel free to take it with you. There is also a yellow card that you may use to introduce yourself to us. If you include your email address, we'll send you our weekly email with news of our various activities. As you meet people today, feel free to introduce yourself and ask any questions that you may have. You are also welcome. We welcome those of you who are joining virtually this morning on our Toledo Unitarians YouTube channel, whether live this morning or later when you tune in. And we hope this time serves your spirit.
Hi, I'm Reverend Tim, and let me add to Karen's welcome, as well as to give thanks again for our wonderful tech crew. Sometimes the equipment does not obey instructions. So that's why we've got strange pictures instead of a nice shot of our crew this morning. Anyway, now on to our chalice lighting. The flame of the chalice that we light in our services symbolizes courage and illumination and honors our search for truth and meaning. This week I'm bringing new words for our chalice lighting, and I'd like us all to say them together as Karen lights the chalice. The words will be on the screen and are in your order of service, and our chalice is already lit. We're getting ahead of ourselves today. So please say these words with me. Our chalice has the spirit of Unitarian Universalism. We light it centered in love. May it glow with sacredness and shine for each and for all. And while we're reciting together, Karen will lead us in the covenant of our congregation. This is not a creed, but what we share with general agreement and what we as a religious community work toward.
Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another.
We're making a small change to the spiritual practice parts of our service this week. This segment, Beyond Ourselves, is what had been on our minds, in our hearts, with our spirits. This is what some might call the pastoral prayer time, in which the service leader calls attention to circumstances of the world or in our congregation that might be noticed in part with meditation, contemplation, or prayer. I had been including about every stage, from what's in the universe to international aspects, down to our congregation and individuals. And that's getting a bit of a change now, highlighting matters of concern in the world and in our church, and leaving more unsaid. And remember that I would note that we include the unsaid in our spiritual practice time as we are in community. And just by being together, we share. We are in the midst today of the celebration of the Jewish New Year, Rosh Hashanah, which began Wednesday. And this coming Friday at sunset begins what's called their most holy day, Yom Kippur, during which their faithful focus on atonement. There's also a present concern to Israeli people and Palestinians and people in many countries of the Middle East: terrorism. Tomorrow is the 1-year anniversary of an attack on a music festival in Israel by Hamas, a terrorist group of Palestinian people. Hostages were taken, and some are still assumed to be alive and held by Hamas. We continue to call for their release. Israel retaliated to the Hamas attack by, it seems, leveling much of Palestinian-held land within Israel, primarily the Gaza Strip, but that destruction has expanded into the West Bank. Many, many people have been killed, so many more than the terrorists that were sought, just because that is where they live and there was no safe place to flee. And the attacks have expanded into Israel from other places by other terrorist organizations, and possibly some government action as well, along with Israeli military responses to countries where those attacks originated. Peace in the Middle East will not be possible, I think, until new solutions and new leadership in the world come to be. In the meantime, may the hostages be returned, a ceasefire come into effect, and talks happen well. Another item of needed attention in spiritual practice being directed beyond ourselves is the recovery along the East Coast, especially, it seems, in Florida and North Carolina from Hurricane Helene. If you want to help in the recovery, our church leaders recommend that you give to the Unitarian Universalist Disaster Relief Fund, which had been carrying a very low balance, but has been bolstered by enough contributions that they can give assistance to recovery from Hurricane Helene. There is a link on the screen that you can go to, or you can just Google UUA Disaster Relief. One other item beyond ourselves, which is uncomfortable for us. We've been addressing some congregational conflict. May we all remember that we join in covenant, including with our behavioral covenant, and may we all be our better selves. Amen. And now please join in our opening hymn, number 346, Come Sing a Song with Me.
Come sing a song with me. Come sing a song with me. Come sing a song with me. time. Come walk in rain with me. Come walk in rain with me. Come walk in rain with me, that I might know you're mine. And I'll bring you hope when hope is hard to find. And I'll bring a song of love and a rose in the winter time. Come share a rose with me. Come share a rose with me. Come share a rose with me, that I might know you're mine. And I'll bring you hope when hope is hard to find. And I'll bring a song of love and a rose in the winter time.
Here, use this.
Good morning. The tech gods are not smiling upon us today. I would like to ask any of my young friends who would like to come forward to do so right now. Don't have to if you don't want to. That's totally cool. Let us talk about happiness for just a minute. Let's talk about the things that make us happy. Who can tell me something that makes you happy? Easy peasy, doesn't have to be anything profound. Sunshine, babies, spring, nice cup of coffee. How does being happy make you feel inside your body? Happy. Can we be a little more descriptive? Yes, Jalen. Makes you feel like you're wanted by other people, like people love you. Yeah. So let's pretend for a minute that happiness is not just a thing that you feel. It's not just inside your body. Let's pretend it's a real thing that you can hold in your hand. I think I'm going to have to duck out of sight of the camera for 1 second here. So let's pretend that you can hold your happiness in your hand. And when I'm holding my happiness, I feel joy in my heart. I feel bouncy, or I feel calm and peaceful. And I can share my happiness with other people so that we can be happy together. But let's pretend that in order to feel happiness in your heart, you have to actually be holding your happiness, or you have to be playing with it with someone else. So let's say that when I got to church this morning, I had my happiness with me. And then I went into my office to set all my things down. Then I went to fellowship hall to get things ready for the grown-ups. Then I went to the kitchen to grab a bottle of water. Then I went to my office to get a book off the bookshelf. Then I went to the classroom to get our joys and concerns ready. Then I went to the bathroom. Then I went to talk to Walter. And then when church started here in the sanctuary at 11, I realized that I didn't have my happiness with me. So how do I start to feel? Sad, bummed out, anxious, yeah. And so I know my happiness is somewhere around here, but I feel like it could be just anywhere. and I am too bummed out, too morose. I don't have the energy to go look for it. And there are so many places it could be, and I feel like it would take me forever to find it. So, what are some things that my friends might be able to do to help me not be so sad? Give me a hug. That's nice. Go for a walk. Smile. Jalen, do something fun. But I can't feel happiness unless I have my actual physical happiness with me, and I don't want to go find it. Do you think somebody could help me do that? My friends could help me retrace my steps. Maybe one friend could look in fellowship hall, and another friend could look in my office, and Walter could check around his feet, and Reverend Tim could look in the kitchen for me, and eventually somebody finds it and brings my happiness back to me. And then I feel much, much better. And that is the thing about happiness. It works best when you're with other people, when you're sharing your happiness and holding your happinesses together. So here's a surprise for the kids. Each of you has a happiness placed somewhere in this building. There is a little knobbly ball somewhere around here with your name on it. And we are going to help each other find our happinesses. Grown-ups, I'm going to ask that you leave this to the kids. Children, if you find a happiness, even if it doesn't belong to you, grab it. We've got a special happiness basket right outside our classroom door. If you see a happiness that is yours or someone else's, take that happiness and put it in the basket for your friends to find when they get here. Kids, you might be able to see a happiness that you can't reach. If that happens, grab a grown-up near you and ask them to help you get to the happiness. Grown-ups, you may see a happiness that you are not permitted to touch. And if that happens, you can just elbow a little kid that's near you and say, hey, grab that happiness right there. And once you find your happiness, it is yours to keep. You can leave it here at church so you can play with it on Sundays. You can take it home with you. Whatever you want to do is fine. And when you have your happiness, I hope it makes you think of how much I love spending my happiness with you and how happy all of your teachers are to see you every Sunday.
As you go on your way, may you be filled with gladness, oh enjoy. May fortune bless your day with peace and loving kindness. Go in love, go in love. Can you turn this mic down just a little bit, please? Thank you. Happy days are here again. The skies above are clear again. So let's sing a song of cheer again. Happy days are here again. All together together. Shout it now, there's no one who can doubt it now. So let's tell the world about it now. Happy days are here again. Your cares and troubles are gone. There'll be no more from now on. From now on, happy days are here again. The skies above so clear again. So let's sing a song of cheer again. Happy times, happy nights, happy days are here again.
Thank you, Jeffrey. This second segment of our spiritual practice in the Sunday service, turning inward, is what had been labeled meditation, contemplation, and prayer. For this, we continue with the service leader bringing a reading that might help us in our own time of meditation, contemplation, or prayer. And after the reading, we'll observe 1 minute of silence, which seems to be too long for some people and too short for others. So I hope it's a happy medium. And after the silence, we'll sing a reflection hymn, which for this week is number 123, Spirit of Life. Today's reading is adapted from Meditation on Forgiveness, a Ritual for Yom Kippur by J.E. Abernathy, Jr. All our lives, we have been told to seek that which is good, to turn our faces from the dark and toward the light, toward beauty, toward truth. But the truth is that the world is not always good. The light we seek casts shadows, and there is brokenness amid the beauty. Our world is far from perfect, and so are we. We strive to be in right relations with one another, but there are times when we are left angry or disappointed, even as we sometimes anger or disappoint others. Whether it is the harsh words said by a loved one, the loss of a friendship, the carelessness of a stranger, or the scars left by a childhood trauma, bad things do happen. We cannot seek truth, beauty, and light without acknowledging and affirming that which is false, broken, and in shadow, for all of these exist within us as well. In this moment of silence, let us remember the wrongs we have endured, the imperfections that we have perpetuated, that we may forgive them and ourselves, and forgive yet again. Let us undertake the work of forgiving ourselves and each other, that we may begin again in love. And 1 minute of silence.
The reading this morning is from The Pursuit, a meditation on happiness by Jerry LaFemina. In the United States, we are obsessed with happiness. According to the most recent World Happiness Report in 2017, the U.S. population has experienced a reduced sense of happiness, dropping from 3rd to 19th in the last 10 years. No wonder there's an industry of self-help books and billion-dollar pharmaceutical businesses designed to lessen our pain, our depression, and our anxiety. A sideshow of doctors has set up tents on television. They gladly tell us their secrets to being happy. They must be happy themselves the way they smile with some smug assuredness that has everything to do with having a producer, a director, a makeup artist, and a sponsor. Do what you love, they say. Look out for number one. Be mindful. Find God. Take a pill. Have 1 glass of wine a day. Join a 12-step program, a self-help group, a bowling league. Do what it takes. We have the right to pursue happiness. It's right there in the Constitution, right after the rights of life and liberty. That doesn't mean we have the right to happiness, just the right to pursue it. It's interesting language, isn't it? The right to pursue happiness, as if it were a rabbit to be tracked and trapped. We are Elmer Fudd, after the wascally wabbit. Like Bugs Bunny, it always seems to elude us.
That reading from Jerry LaFemina states, "We have the right to pursue happiness." It's right there in the Constitution after the rights of life and liberty. That doesn't mean we have the right to happiness, just the right to pursue it. Although the author was incorrect about which of our founding documents has that phrase, it's the Declaration of Independence, not the Constitution. We do have the right to pursue happiness. This is the time in our government cycle when candidates campaign for election. They all want happiness in some form, whether it's for you to have the ability to pursue your own happiness, or they're just getting your vote to make them happy, or some combination of us and them. And they try to convince you that a vote for that candidate means you'll be happier because that person will help the government to treat you well. We've heard some promises we'd like to have happen, and yes, we've heard a number of lies. It's election time. In Ohio, tomorrow is the last day for eligible people to register to vote for the November 5th election. Tuesday, the day after tomorrow, is when early voting begins. Are you ready to cast your ballot now? And then hope that the people you chose don't do anything before all ballots are counted that would make you want to change your vote? I expect that I will vote early. I am undecided about a couple of issues before us, though, so I want to be sure I've done the research before I go to the polls. I won't wait until November 5th and just show up with a coin to flip. We have a denominational effort, You the Vote, that uses the tag faith, hope, action. Faith, hope, action together. Its website says, You the Vote is a bold initiative created by the Unitarian Universalist Association's Side with Love team, providing UUs a thoughtfully crafted plug-and-play opportunity to bring our democratic values to life in the crucial struggle to build a genuine multiracial democracy. UU the Vote engages people in voter registration, issue education, get out the vote drives, voter protection, state leadership development, and more. Now in 2024, we have progressed to shift from just election year organizing to year-round movement-building work toward building a truly inclusive democracy. I urge you to UU the Vote. Now, I can't tell you who to vote for. I can talk about issues, and I'll note that our church board has endorsed a yes vote for issue 1 in Ohio, which is to end gerrymandering, and it honors our Unitarian Universalist value of justice, as the change would help us to lean toward inclusive democratic processes to make decisions. And I urge you to ignore the ballot language that claims this is a way to impose gerrymandering. What issue 1 does is to put the composition of political districts into the control of the people rather than continuing to let politicians form districts that better assure the party currently in power will continue to win. And I think that has to be more inclusive than what the system is right now. But today, for an election sermon, I decided to bring up that important phrase from the Declaration of Independence, the pursuit of happiness. It's getting some notice this year. Jeffrey Rosen, the president and chief executive officer of the National Constitution Center, as well as a law professor and a magazine journalist, has a new book out, The Pursuit of Happiness: How Classical Writers on Virtue Inspired the Lives of the Founders and Defined America. If you're into philosophy and figures in the Enlightenment, and I am, you might enjoy it. If you're a general reader, you might flip through it and consider whether it's a book for you. You have probably heard before the assertion that pursuit of happiness is based on virtue rather than just an individual's position of happiness means I can do what I want. William Bennett, a conservative who became U.S. Secretary of Education almost 40 years ago, published The Book of Virtues a little more than 30 years ago, with the idea of sharing stories to illustrate how to live virtuously. Rosen brings up virtue being part of moral philosophy, which had fallen out of favor when he was a student. So his book revives some of the concept of morals, kind of the domain of religion as well as schools of philosophy. I have to note that some misunderstood ownership of virtue got us into some of the extreme political factionalism we have today. Really, the truth is that virtue is for liberals, conservatives, and those who don't have a political bend. And it's for people of all religions and no religion. Virtue is really what our Unitarian Universalist values lead us toward: compassion centered in love. Rosen leads the National Constitution Center, but there's another Constitution-related book that I also picked up, The Year of Living Constitutionally: One Man's Humble Quest to Follow the Constitution's Original Meaning, by A.J. Jacobs. Jacobs is a fun writer. You might be familiar with his earlier book on trying to live a year according to biblical instruction. This book reports on his bringing in all the Constitution provisions, including some that are still there but no longer apply. And he uses them for comic effect. For this book, he wrote, I immediately decided the Jacobs family needed a constitution. For the preamble, here's what I came up with. We, the people of the Jacobs family, will pursue our own happiness, but we also pledge to improve the well-being of friends, our community, our state, our country, our world, and just to be safe, our universe. What might your own statement on the pursuit of your own happiness be? Would it align with your Unitarian Universalist values and inspirations? Jacobs also brought up virtue, explaining that in the founding era, virtue was a cherished ideal. I think we're due for a resurgence of virtue. I know I could use more of it. As a rule, he continued, I'm too focused on my individual rights. Rights are wonderful, but they come with responsibilities. I wish the Constitution had a bill of responsibilities, but I think the idea of public responsibility was more ingrained back then and didn't need to be spelled out. Rosen's book goes to that more ingrained time, exploring how the phrase the pursuit of happiness became influential to the people who helped to found the United States and where they got it from Enlightenment philosophers and earlier. We find that the Roman Stoic writer Cicero has that in his Tusculan Disputations, which Rosen says was kind of an advice and self-help book manual from around the year 45 BCE. But the concept really goes back to Socrates, he notes. Today we think of happiness as the pursuit of pleasure, Rosen wrote, but classical and Enlightenment thinkers defined happiness as the pursuit of virtue, as being good rather than feeling good. Adam Gopnik, a longtime writer for The New Yorker, has the short book, All That Happiness Is, Some Words on What Matters. His opening paragraph says, "What is happiness, and where can you find it if you ever can? We all know that its pursuit is guaranteed right there in the Declaration of Independence, sort of improbably. I don't think many political charters include such a light-hearted instruction. The phrase, the pursuit of happiness, suggesting picnics and fireworks and flirtation, more than it suggests the stern work of revolution." Gopnik says we can locate happiness not in something gained, but in something lost. The loss of ourselves in something other. Genuine happiness, he writes, is always rooted in the absorption in something outside us and begins in accomplishment undertaken for its own sake and pursued to its own odd and buzzing ends. He says a key for happiness is accomplishment, not achievement. Accomplishment is something you do, and achievement is more you're satisfying something outwardly imposed. Our accomplishments mark the sum of happiness experienced, and that is the one kind of achievement worth achieving, he writes. The pursuit is the happiness. In his tying all that happiness is to the nation's founders, Gopnik writes, "There's a reason why Jefferson and the rest insisted on the pursuit of happiness in their hopeful catalog of revolutionary purpose. For it is exactly both the test and the foundation of a healthy society that it encourages the pursuit of private pleasures and encourages their mutual tolerance. By far the most important conception of a liberal society, in the sense of a society committed to argument, elections, and the oscillation of power, is not democracy or equality alone. It is pluralism. Pluralism in politics and political parties, sure, but a pluralism that extends so deeply in our imaginations and practices that it rests in the end on a pluralism of pleasures. Remember, fellow Unitarian Universalists, that one of our 6 values centered in love is pluralism. As it's stated in our Unitarian Universalist bylaws, we celebrate that we are all sacred beings, diverse in culture, experience, and theology. One aspect that helps a person to pursue happiness is a system in which the people are recognized to have that right. Our democracy has that system. It's time to vote and consider, especially for some issues that candidates support, as well as some issues on the ballot for consideration themselves, how people's rights to pursue happiness are encouraged or restricted. Pursue your own happiness by all means, but also have the virtue to help others' happiness. Their pursuit and accomplishment of it better come into being. And if you can vote, do vote. And please, you the vote. So be it.
Now it's the time for our offering, to ask you here in this room and you who are watching on a screen to honor the Toledo Unitarians in part through your generous financial giving. We are primarily a self-supporting congregation, so members' pledges are important to us, but it would also help if you put a little extra in the basket. We will pass the baskets here, and the offering will now be given and gratefully received. You who seeing us on video, please use one of the suggested ways of giving that you see on the screen. And you here who might miss the past baskets can leave a pledge payment or donation in the basket in the lobby as you leave the sanctuary. And thank you for helping Unitarian Universalism thrive in Toledo.
So our offering hymn is 1007, not 1008. So just
There's a river flowing in my soul. There's a river flowing in my soul. And it's telling me that I'm somebody.
Jeffrey and our choir. It's the coming soon part of our service where we tell you what's on the calendar for next week, we give some announcements, and we also let you know what's up for right after the service. Join us for Spiritual Forum at 9:45 on Sunday, when our guest speaker will be Michael Alexander, the first vice president of the Toledo branch of the NAACP. Michael Alexander is currently the labor engagement liaison of United Way of Greater Toledo, and he is a proud member of UAW Local 12. Come learn the many ways our NAACP, locally and nationally, is furthering the advancement of civil and human rights. Then for the Sunday service at 11 a.m. here in the sanctuary and on our YouTube channel, I have the sermon title, Vision. You might figure that it's in part on our Unitarian Universalist religious vision, but there's also the aspect that I recently had cataract lens replacement surgery, so my own vision has changed.
This coming Monday, tomorrow at 6 p.m., First Unitarian will be the site for the monthly service of universal worship presented by the Multi-Faith Council of Northwest Ohio. 9 faith traditions will offer readings and poetry on poetry or music on the theme of nonviolence, and the service will be led by our own Judy Troutman, along with Lorraine Carpenter, both of whom are ordained shirags of the Sufi Rahaniyat International. Our commissioned lay minister, David Strickler, will represent Unitarian Universalism in the service. Please come to this service at 6 p.m. on Monday, and I hear that there will be cookies and other treats served after. Or tune in on our Toledo Unitarians YouTube channel as our producer-director, Walter McGee, will live stream it. There's also an event outside the congregation coming up on Tuesday at 7 p.m. that we want to remind you about. New York Times columnist David Brooks will be giving a talk about his newest book, How to Know a Person, The Art of Seeing Others Deeply and Being Deeply Seen. We'll answer questions and we'll have a book signing, and I think there will be copies for sale, and a reception at the Franciscan Life Center at Lourdes University in Sylvania. We're giving this announcement because thanks to a donation from Teal, the Teal Committee, we're a community partner of Neighbor to Neighbor, the group bringing him here, which is based at St. Michael's in the Hills Episcopal Church. We hear that tickets are now sold out, so you who have tickets, please remember to go, or if you find you can't go, might you share your ticket with someone else? And later this month, on Friday, October 25th at 7 p.m., we'll be hosting a music concert in our sanctuary. Charlie King, who performed here a year ago, is returning, and this time he's bringing musician Rick Burkhart with him. Tickets are available on eventbrite.com. Cost is $20, and all proceeds go to the First Unitarian Church. And the final coming soon entry is for me to repeat the invitation for you to join us in Fellowship Hall after today's service for coffee, conversation, and social time. And thank you to Carla Logan Mercer, our kitchen coordinator, for heading up our kitchen crew.
Now let's have one more observance of spiritual practice. which we're adding to the service starting today. We have gone beyond ourselves with a pastoral time and turned within for meditation, contemplation, and prayer. Now, recognizing the Buddhist thread in our congregation, as we near the close of our service, let's all come together and share in a time of metta. Coming from an ancient language of India, metta is a term for love and kindness. Metta is a way of having compassion for and sending it to all beings. As the words are on the screen, please look at them, and then we will say the words together. After that, as we prepare to extinguish the chalice, you have the time to repeat this to yourselves. Our metta spiritual practice. May I, may we, and may all beings be well, be happy, be peaceful, be safe, awaken to the light of our true nature, and be free. Please join me in saying our words for extinguishing the chalice. We send the flame from our Unitarian Universalist chalice with the love on which we center everything to fire up the world, spreading equity, generosity, interdependence, justice, pluralism, and transformation.
As we leave this friend